Tammy's skin rotted, cancer spread, and TLC tried to bury it. The lights, the cameras, the carefully edited laughter, none of it could hide the silent suffering that was consuming Tammy Slaton behind the scenes. To the millions of viewers who tuned into 1000 LB Sisters each week, Tammy was the tough, outspoken, often misunderstood woman fighting for a better life. But behind those scenes, in the quiet moments after the camera stopped rolling, Tammy's reality was much darker. It was a fight not just for weight loss, but for survival, one that would take her to the edge of life itself. After years of battling obesity, addiction, and emotional trauma, Tammy finally achieved what many thought was impossible. She lost enough weight to qualify for skin removal surgery. It was supposed to be the beginning of her new life, a reward for her discipline, her pain, and her perseverance. But no one, not even Tammy herself, could have predicted that this operation would become the nightmare that would nearly destroy her. According to insiders close to the production, Tammy's operation took place quietly away from TLC's cameras. At her insistence, she wanted privacy this time, something she had rarely been allowed since her rise to fame. Yet, within days of the surgery, doctors began noticing something alarming. Tammy's body wasn't healing properly. The incisions, which were meant to close neatly, started showing signs of infection and necrosis, a rotting of the tissue that can spread dangerously fast. She kept saying it didn't feel right, one nurse allegedly confided. There was a smell, a deep rotten smell that you don't forget. We knew something was wrong. Tammy's post-surgical wounds became so severe that parts of her skin began decaying, leading to emergency treatments that weren't supposed to happen. One insider described how medical staff had to remove portions of infected tissue every few days, leaving Tammy in unbearable agony. She was confined to a hospital bed for weeks, unable to move, fighting pain that no reality show could ever capture. And then, as if the infection wasn't enough, her doctors delivered even more devastating news. The tissue samples showed signs of early-stage cancer. Whether the cancer had been developing silently before surgery or was triggered by the severe infection remains unclear, but one thing was certain: Tammy's condition was now life-threatening. It was at this moment that Tammy reportedly made one of the hardest decisions of her life to step away from filming altogether. TLC, which had followed her every move for years, wasn't pleased. According to production sources, executives were furious that Tammy's health issues would delay or possibly derail Season 8 of 1000 LB Sisters. With filming already behind schedule and contract signed, the network allegedly began pressuring Tammy to return despite her critical condition. They told her the fans were waiting, claimed one source familiar with the conversations. They said she needed to push through, that this was part of her story, but she told them she couldn't. She said she wouldn't let cameras film her dying. But the pressure didn't stop there. Reports suggest TLC even threatened financial penalties if Tammy refused to fulfill her filming obligations. They allegedly reminded her of her contractual agreements and hinted that her non-compliance could lead to legal consequences. For a woman already battling physical and emotional pain, this felt like another betrayal. Those close to Tammy described her as heartbroken, not just by her body's failure, but by the realization that she had become a product rather than a person in the eyes of the very company that had once promised to help her. She had given them everything: her tears, her struggles, her private battles. And now, when she needed compassion, all she got was pressure. She told them, "I'm not a circus act," said a close friend. She said she'd rather walk away than be filmed at her worst again. Behind the scenes, doctors continued to fight to stabilize her condition. Her immune system was weak, and the cancer diagnosis had opened up an entirely new battle. Chemotherapy wasn't an immediate option because her wounds hadn't fully healed, leaving her in a dangerous limbo, too sick to treat aggressively, too fragile to endure more surgery. During these long, painful months, Tammy reportedly withdrew completely from the public eye. Her family, especially Amy, tried to stay strong for her, but sources say the emotional strain was tearing them apart. Amy herself allegedly clashed with TLC producers, demanding they respect Tammy's privacy. Amy felt they were pushing too hard, said one insider. She said, "My sister's not your storyline anymore." But in the world of reality television, silence is bad for business. TLC allegedly began quietly shifting the show's focus toward other family members, avoiding any mention of Tammy's worsening condition. Episodes that could have documented her recovery or her decline were scrapped entirely. The network reportedly buried all footage and medical discussions, choosing instead to promote lighter, more marketable storylines. For Tammy, this was the final straw. The woman who had once shared everything from her weight struggles to her tears was now living her most terrifying chapter completely alone. She stopped posting on social media. She refused interviews. To fans, it looked like she had simply disappeared. But behind closed doors, she was enduring what she described to one confidant as the hardest fight of my life. She was in constant pain. The source said quietly. Every breath, every movement hurt. But she said she wasn't scared of dying. She was scared of being forgotten. The combination of infection, cancer, and corporate betrayal left Tammy emotionally shattered. She reportedly told her inner circle that she had lost faith in TLC entirely and vowed that if she ever recovered, she would expose everything, the pressure, the threats, the manipulation, the things the public never saw. But Tammy's story doesn't end there. Because just as her health began to stabilize slightly, another devastating blow would shake her world again. A leaked hospital document, one that TLC allegedly tried to suppress, suggested her condition might be far worse than anyone realized. By the time whispers of Tammy Slaton's medical crisis reached the public, TLC was already in full damage control mode. What had once been a private health struggle had now become a potential scandal, one that threatened not only Tammy's reputation, but the credibility of an entire network. And when a leaked hospital document began circulating quietly among fan forums and insiders, the truth that TLC had fought so hard to bury was finally on the verge of breaking open. The document, allegedly a doctor's report from late summer, painted a horrifying picture. It detailed extensive skin necrosis, signs of cancerous cell growth, and multiple post-surgical infections that required emergency intervention. The report stated bluntly, patient exhibits aggressive dermal deterioration and requires advanced oncological evaluation. In simple terms, Tammy's skin was rotting, and the cancer was spreading faster than doctors had anticipated. Someone inside the hospital, possibly outraged at how TLC was ignoring Tammy's plight, had allegedly leaked the report to a close friend of the Slaton family. Within weeks, copies were circulating privately among producers, assistants, and eventually a small circle of bloggers who had been covering the 1000 LB Sisters saga for years. But before anyone could publish it, TLC's legal team stepped in. They moved fast, said one insider who worked in post-production. Emails went out to everyone connected to the show. They said any discussion about Tammy's health was a violation of her privacy and the company's contracts, but we knew what that meant. They weren't protecting her privacy. They were protecting their image. According to sources, TLC executives feared that releasing details about Tammy's decaying skin and cancer battle would cause a public relations disaster. The show's image had always been one of transformation and triumph of turning pain into progress. The last thing the network wanted was for audiences to see the darker side of what happens after the cameras stop rolling. Behind closed doors, the network allegedly began rewriting history. Editors were instructed to cut out all mentions of Tammy's pain, exhaustion, or hospital stays. Scenes that hinted at her health problems were quietly re-edited or replaced with lighthearted family moments. Even Amy's tearful confessions about her sister's condition were said to have been removed entirely. They wanted to make it seem like she was just taking a break, one crew member revealed. But that wasn't true. She wasn't resting. She was fighting to stay alive. Meanwhile, Tammy's situation continued to deteriorate. Despite being under close medical supervision, her wounds weren't healing. She required multiple rounds of antibiotics and wound debridement, a painful process that involves removing rotted tissue layer by layer. At times, she was so weak she could barely lift her arm. Her doctors urged her to begin aggressive cancer treatment as soon as possible. But there was one major obstacle: money. Although Tammy had made a name for herself as a reality TV star, much of her income was reportedly tied to TLC contracts. Without active filming, the payments had slowed down or stopped entirely. She was facing mounting medical bills that the network allegedly refused to cover. They used her story to make millions, one family friend said bitterly. But when she needed help, they vanished. In desperation, Tammy's family began exploring crowdfunding options, but TLC allegedly warned them not to post anything about her condition publicly. The network, fearing public backlash, insisted that any fundraising efforts must be pre-approved. To those close to Tammy, it was clear what was happening. The network was trying to control the narrative at all costs. It was cruel, said the insider. They silenced her while she was suffering. They didn't want anyone to know how bad it had gotten. But the truth couldn't stay hidden forever. In early autumn, one brave hospital employee allegedly leaked photographs from Tammy's recovery room images, so disturbing they were immediately taken down after brief appearances online. They showed the reality of her condition: massive surgical scars, open wounds, and the effects of aggressive tissue decay. Fans who saw them described the images as haunting and unbelievable. TLC's response was immediate. Lawyers reportedly sent cease and desist letters to multiple bloggers and YouTubers who mentioned the photos. But the damage was already done. The story had spread and questions began flooding online. Where was Tammy? Why had she vanished from social media? Why wasn't TLC showing her recovery? As pressure grew, insiders claimed TLC executives held an emergency meeting to discuss their next steps. One proposal allegedly was to film a controlled interview with Tammy, something they could edit carefully to maintain the network's image while appearing transparent. But Tammy refused. She told them, "No," said a friend. She said, "You already took everything from me. You don't get this too." Instead, Tammy began privately documenting her journey on her own phone voice notes, short video clips, even diary entries. According to those who have seen them, her recordings are raw, emotional, and often devastating. In one clip, she allegedly says, "I thought I was strong enough to handle fame. I didn't know it would kill me." Those recordings may now become the most explosive evidence in her fight against TLC should she decide to go public. As word of the leaked report spread, fans began piecing together clues. They noticed that Tammy's hospital gown in one brief social media clip didn't match the rehab facility TLC claimed she was in. Others pointed out that she had been missing from all network promotions for months. The puzzle was forming, and it painted a disturbing picture of neglect, manipulation, and silence. Behind the scenes, Tammy's cancer treatments were finally beginning, but only after she reportedly found independent sponsors willing to cover her medical costs. Even then, the treatments took a devastating toll. She lost her hair, her energy, and her hope. She was battling infection and cancer simultaneously, often hooked to machines for hours, alone and exhausted. Meanwhile, TLC was moving forward with 1000 LB Sisters Season 8. They framed Tammy's absence as a personal wellness break, focusing instead on Amy's family life and new cast members. But fans weren't fooled. The online backlash intensified, with many accusing the network of profiting from trauma and abandoning their star in her darkest hour. The hashtag Tammy deserves better began trending. Thousands of viewers demanded answers, but TLC remained silent. Statements from the network were vague and corporate. We continued to support Tammy Slaton's health journey privately and respectfully. Yet behind that polished language was a disturbing reality. A woman fighting both a deadly disease and a powerful corporation. Then, in a move that shocked everyone, a whistleblower from within TLC came forward. The anonymous source who had worked in the production department allegedly leaked internal emails showing that executives had discussed minimizing Tammy's storyline to protect brand image. The emails mentioned containment of negative optics and potential liability if medical footage leaks. These damning words confirmed what many had suspected. The network wasn't protecting Tammy, it was protecting itself. The leaks sent ripples through the entertainment industry. Other reality TV alumni began speaking out, sharing their own stories of being exploited and silenced when their health declined. TLC, once known for its heartwarming human interest stories, now face accusations of cover-ups, manipulation, and corporate cruelty. Through it all, Tammy remained quiet publicly. But those close to her say she was watching everything unfold. She knew the truth was finally coming to light, but she also knew that the battle wasn't over. Because the moment TLC realized the scandal could explode, they allegedly made one last move. They sent representatives directly to Tammy's hospital, offering her a massive settlement, but only if she agreed to stay silent forever. By the time winter settled over Kentucky, Tammy Slaton was living in a world far removed from the one she once knew. The bright lights, camera crews, and endless filming schedules had faded into memory. What remained was a quiet hospital room, a woman battling both disease and despair, and a media empire determined to bury the truth before it could destroy them. But what TLC didn't realize was that Tammy, weak, broken, and alone, was also more determined than ever to make sure her story would not die with her. According to insiders, TLC's legal representatives arrived at Tammy's bedside with carefully worded documents and a rehearsed tone of sympathy. The offer was clear. The network would pay her a substantial settlement, cover some of her remaining medical costs, and ensure she continued receiving residual payments if she signed a non-disclosure agreement. The NDA would forbid Tammy from ever discussing her post-surgery complications, the cancer diagnosis, or any unrecorded production experiences that might harm the network's image. They wanted her silence, one friend said flatly. They wanted to buy her pain and bury it. At first, Tammy considered it. The medical bills were overwhelming, and the treatments had drained her both physically and financially. The thought of Snort's security, even temporary, was tempting. But the more she read the document, the more she realized what it truly meant. Signing it wouldn't just silence her. It would erase everything she had endured. Every night of pain, every moment of fear, every betrayal would vanish behind. Corporate confidentiality. She cried when she saw the paper. The friend continued. She said, "They want to take my voice again. I can't let them do that." For Tammy, this wasn't just about money anymore. It was about dignity, something she felt she had lost long before the surgery went wrong. Her years on 1,000-pound sisters had given her fame, but it had also left her feeling exposed, mocked, and misrepresented. Every episode had been edited to fit a narrative that wasn't entirely hers. Now, in her weakest moment, the same network was asking her to give up the last thing she had left, her truth. Against the advice of lawyers and producers, Tammy refused to sign. She told TLC's representatives she would not be silenced, even if it meant losing everything. She said she'd rather die with her story out there than live being controlled, recalled another insider. That defiance marked the beginning of a new and dangerous chapter. Not long after her refusal, strange things began happening. Calls that had been coming from TLC stopped abruptly. The network's public relations team distanced themselves completely. Even longtime producers who had once checked in on Tammy suddenly went quiet. It was as if she had been erased from the company's history overnight. Behind the scenes, however, Tammy began taking control. With the help of a small circle of trusted friends and supporters, she started compiling evidence, text messages, emails, call logs, and even snippets of behind-the-scenes footage that never made it to air. These files, which she stored on multiple devices, allegedly documented everything from production manipulation to health neglect. One particularly disturbing recording, according to a source who has heard it, captured a producer telling her, "If you're not in pain, you're not interesting television." It was proof of what she'd been saying for years, that her suffering had become the network's profit. As Tammy's health fluctuated, her emotional strength began to grow. She started working on what insiders describe as a secret video diary project with the intention of releasing it independently on YouTube or through a documentary platform. The videos, recorded mostly at night, were raw and unfiltered. Tammy speaking directly to the camera, often in tears, telling her side of the story with brutal honesty. In one clip, she allegedly says, "They showed the world my worst moments, but they never showed what they did to me when the cameras were off. They said I Was difficult, lazy, mean, but I was dying, and they made me perform for it. These recordings, now stored securely by her close friends, are believed to be her ultimate weapon, the one thing TLC can't edit or suppress. Meanwhile, the pressure on the network was mounting. The leaked medical reports combined with the whistleblower's emails had sparked multiple internal investigations at TLC's parent company. While the network continued to deny wrongdoing, the growing chorus of voices, fans, former cast members, and now insiders was becoming impossible to ignore. Online petitions calling for transparency gained thousands of signatures, and entertainment journalists began probing deeper into how the network handled its reality stars behind the scenes. In private, Tammy's doctors continued to fight for her survival. The infection was under control, but the cancer had spread. She underwent several painful treatments, alternating between hope and despair. Some days she spoke about future plans. Other days, she whispered fears that she might not live to see her truth fully revealed. "If I go," she told a nurse one night, "promise me someone will tell them what they did." The nurse, who later spoke anonymously, said it was one of the most haunting moments of her career. Through all of this, Tammy's relationship with her sister Amy became both her lifeline and her source of sorrow. Amy, caught between loyalty to her sister and contractual obligations to the network, struggled to balance both. She reportedly wanted to leave the show entirely, but TLC offered her increased pay and more control over the narrative, something she accepted reluctantly, knowing she needed to provide for her children. Tammy never blamed her, but those close to them say the tension between the sisters was palpable. "They love each other," one family member said softly, "but this show broke them." As Tammy's condition worsened, she began finalizing. 1,000 pounds sister star Tammy Slaton is not the hero she is made out to be, as her red flags prove this. 1,000 Pounds Sisters Season 7 recently wrapped up after airing 9 episodes. Season 7 featured all of Tammy's siblings, Misty Slaton Wentworth, Chris Combs, Amanda Halterman, and Amy Slaton. Originally, Tammy and Amy were the focus of the show, but it expanded to include the rest of their family as their family dynamics and drama proved interesting. Furthermore, Misty, Chris, and Amanda, in addition to Amy, had bariatric surgery to improve their health and have seen success. Chris was the first of the bunch to get skin removal surgery, and it greatly improved his life. Tammy really wanted to get skin removal surgery as well, as she lost over 500 pounds, but she was protein deficient and also had an issue with vaping. However, Tammy was able to overcome both obstacles and was approved for skin removal. The doctors took 15 pounds of excess skin from Tammy's face, neck, arms, and lower abdomen. While Tammy has come a long way, she still has red flags that shouldn't be ignored or overshadowed by her positive edit. Tammy's Season 7 edit has been overly positive. Tammy's weight loss hero edit. At her heaviest, Tammy weighed 725 pounds and had a slew of medical issues including lung, thyroid, blood pressure, and mobility problems. She didn't start helping herself until Season 3, when a medical emergency landed her in a coma on life support. It was only after that Tammy was willing to enter a weight loss rehab center, one which she had left prematurely before and stuck to her program, that she was able to get approved for bariatric surgery. After the surgery, Tammy was able to drop the significant weight she did, and then was able to return home. Since coming home, Tammy continued with her diet and exercise routines and maintained her weight loss, which turned her into an icon and hero. Tammy has overcome her morbid obesity and all the complications that came with it, and she is still advocating for bariatric journeys, skin removal, and mental health, making her a